Hello, everyone. It's Mr. Wesner and
Stella and Fred right now.
Mr. Wesner, Stella, and Fred. Fred decided to join us in the old YouTube studios that we've made up here. This is our this is the YouTube studios that one day I think we're gonna get like a little sign right here that says YouTube Studios. How do you like that?
Yeah.
You gonna make a sign for us, Stella?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, stop making the faces.
Make a rainbow.
We're gonna make a rainbow, and it's gonna say YouTube Studios. Tonight we are reading. Oh, so Fred's gonna be on it. Tonight we're reading. Here's once again the same picture from yesterday, but I just put the new title on there. Tonight we're reading The Bunyans, and there's my fancy handwriting that when it looks backwards, it looks like it says 62 something, but it's really the test number is 25293. Yes, that is 25293. As in, how many days? I feel like we've already been in isolation. 25,293.
Daddy, let's see if anybody's on our video.
So you want to see? Okay, so if you're on here, go ahead and say hi. Type in the chat. Say where you're from. Say who you are. Who do you think is going to be on here today, Stella?
Maybe I don't.
You don't know.
I don't. Rose doesn't have a phone.
What? Rose? Rose. Her American doll, Rose. Where do you think they're going to be from? Where do you think they'll be from? Name a place. Mars? You think they'll be from Mars? That's silly. Let's do this so you can see. There we go.
Here, Fred.
Hi, Fred. Look at them. See, there he is. Here's our good boy, Fred. Nobody's typing. I see 3 people on here, and nobody's typing saying where they're from. Well, I'll say, hi, I'm Mr. Wesner, and I'm from Kentucky.
Then put on the chat.
Then put it on the chat.
Yeah, then put on the chat, please. And then put on the chat.
I will say, before we get going on our story, The Bunyans, which, like I said on Facebook, this is not about a foot problem. This is a completely different book. It's non-medical. This is about Paul Bunyan and his family. But before we get going, is there anything you want to say, Stella? Don't erase that. That's the test number. Don't erase that. Before we get going, I did teach Stella some French. Stella, did you learn some French yesterday? Okay, so Stella, tell them, how do you say hello? Do you remember how to say hello?
No.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And when we're done, how do you say goodbye?
Au revoir.
What?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. And we also say, oh, somebody gave us a big old thumbs up. Thank you, whoever you are. You didn't put anything in the chat, though. Say something. We said, to say cheese, instead, if I said I love cheese, which I've told my kids the story. One time I was in Paris, and I was kind of downstairs waiting for my friend, and I was talking to the lady who kind of was like the housekeeper for the whole building we were staying in, and she spoke very little English, and I spoke very little French. I'm trying to say, and all I could say was not I like things. I didn't even say Fred. I didn't say just I like things. I would say I love things. J'adore. And I said I was asked. They said to you, asked me, she basically said, do you like Paris? And all I could say is, j'adore la Tour Eiffel. Like I love the Eiffel Tower. And I said, j'adore le fromage. And I was like, I just had some cheese. I'm like, I love cheese. Like, so apparently to this lady, this crazy American guy loves cheese. Doesn't just like cheese. He loves cheese. He just can't have enough cheese. It's kind of a crazy thing to do. Hey, Still, you won't let Fred out? I think he's wanting to get out. You want to let him out of here, please? Okay, well, he's kind of barking, and he might bark under a book.
I need to come try to make a picture.
Well, I'm going to read the story. Stella, I need you to let Fred out because he's going to make too much sound while we're reading, okay?
Okay, almost done with his ears.
Okay. And then, she's drawing Fred is what she's doing for you. Okay, well, like I said, I've got 4. Like I said before, if you want to say something in the chat, say something and say who you are. I got 5 people on here now. Awesome.
Yeah.
Make sure you've liked and subscribed to this channel.
And that button is up here.
Yeah, she keeps talking about this notification button, and it's really not on there. I don't think it is somewhere above there somewhere, but hit the notification button. It lets you know if we're doing more videos.
It's not.
Okay, well.
Just keep the door.
Yes, keep the door open. So here we go. You ready? We're going to read the Bunyans. And if you hear it click, 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 that just means that, there it is. Just shut the door, please, because he's going to want in. Okay, quickly. Here we go. Now we've closed up the studio, and now we're getting ready to enter the wonderful world of the Bunyans. Whoopsh, 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 whoopsh. Okay, it's 3D. Here we go. Here we go. And this story does take us into Kentucky. Here we go. The Bunyans. And there's a picture of them. There's a storyteller's note. Now, I suppose you have heard about the mighty logger Paul Bunyan and his great blue ox named Babe. In the early days of our country, Paul and Babe cleared the land for the settlers, so farms and cities could spring up. And you probably know that Paul was taller than a redwood tree, stronger than 50 grizzly bears, and smarter than a library full of books. But you may not know that Paul was married and had 2 fine children. Hey, you don't need your binoculars for this story. He's a big guy. Now, Sel, I need you to sit still so they can all pay attention to the story. And here we go.
I can't.
Oh, yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Here we go. It says, there's our picture.
So,
One day when Paul Bunyan was out... Okay, Stella, stop. I'm trying to read, okay? Okay. One day when Paul Bunyan was out clearing a road through the forest of Kentucky... Hey, that's where we live. A great pounding began to shake the earth and looking around. Paul discovered an enormous hole in the side of the hill. The lumberjack pulled up an acre of dry cane and fashioned a torch to light his way. Paul climbed inside the hole and followed the sound underground for miles until he came to a large cavern glistening with crystals. By the flickering light of his torch, he saw a gigantic woman banging a behemoth pickaxe against a wall. It was love at first sight. Ooh. I'm Carrie McIntyre, the gigantic woman said. I was sitting on the hill when my lucky wishbone fell down a crack into the earth. I've been digging all day trying to find it. With a grin on his face as wide as the Missouri River, Paul reached into his shirt pocket. I've got one too, he said, pulling out his lucky wishbone. Marry me, Carrie, and we'll share mine. So there we go. They're going to share his lucky wishbone. Carrie agreed, and their wedding invitations were mailed out right away. The invitations were so large, only one needed to be sent to each state. Everyone could read them for miles. The invitation said, "You are cordially invited to the mammoth wedding of Paul Bunyan and Carrie McIntyre." The couple were married in the enormous crystal chamber that Carrie had carved, and after the ceremony, folks began to call it Mammoth Cave. Hey, I've been there. The giantess had dug more than 200 miles, making it the longest cave in the world, so the name fit perfectly. And that is a true story. It is the longest cave in the world. Isabella's listening. Isabella, hello. They've got kids. Paul and Carrie settled down on a farm in Maine, and soon there were 2 new Bunyans. While Pa Bunyan traveled with his logging crew, Ma Bunyan worked the farm and cared for their jumbo boy named Little Jean and gigantic girl named Teeny. Okay, that's a silly name. I mean, she's gigantic. I mean, look at what she's holding. She's ginormous. You can't call her Teeny. And there's Teeny again. One morning when Pa Bunyan was home between jobs, Ma Bunyan cooked up a hearty breakfast of pancakes and syrup. Teeny was wrestling with her big purple puma named Slink and accidentally dumped a silo of syrup on her head. Teeny's hair was so sweet, bears crawled into it and burrowed deep in her curls. Try as they might, Pa and Ma Bunyan couldn't wash them out. We'll need a forceful shower of water to get rid of those varmints, Ma Bunyan declared. Forceful power, some water. I wonder where they can go for water like that. I know where they can go. Pa Bunyan had an idea. He placed his daughter on Babe, and he led them to the Niagara River in Canada. the gargantuan father scooped out a huge hole in the middle of the riverbed. As the great river roared down into the deep hole, Teeny cried out in delight. Niagara Falls! Teeny showered in the waterfall, and the pesky bears were washed downstream. That's how we got Niagara Falls. Interesting. When little Gene was 5, he wanted to work too, so he followed his pa out to his logging camp in Montana. Thinking his son was too young to do much of anything, Paul set little Gene down in a barren canyon in Utah to play for the day. When the lumberjack went to fetch him, he couldn't believe his eyes. Little Gene had carved the canyon into a wonderland of fanciful shapes. Paul Bunyan got tongue-tied and said, "That's a mighty Bryce Nanyan. Coy, I mean, a mighty nice canyon, boy." Somehow part of the mixed up stuck. To this day, the canyon is known as Bryce Canyon. You hear Stella screaming in the background. We need her to go back to school. After all that sculpting, little Jean's shoes were full of sand. Pa knew Ma Bunyan wouldn't want her clean floors dirtied up, so he told little Jean to sit down and empty out his shoes. The sand from little Jean's shoes blew away on the eastern wind and settled down a state away. It covered a valley 10 miles long, making sand dunes 800 feet high. Everyone knows that's how the great sand dunes of Colorado came to be. Let me tell you, if you've never been to sand dunes, they're like some of the coolest places to be. The divine children are watching. Oh, hello, all 3 divine children. And you know what's safe, by the way, is I'm not getting punched by some little fist of fury from 3rd grade. Back to our story. One summer, little Jean and Teeny wanted to go to the beach. Ma Bunyan told them to follow a river to the ocean, but all the rivers flowed west back then, so they missed the Atlantic Ocean and ended up on the other side of the country instead. Ma Bunyan tracked them out to the Pacific Ocean, where she found Teeny riding the backs of 2 blue whales and little Jean carving out 50 zigzag miles of the California coast. When Ma Bunyan saw what her son had done, she exclaimed, "What's the big idea, sir?" From that time on, the scenic area was known as Big Sur. Ma Bunyan knew she had to put up a barrier to remind her children not to wander off too far. So on the way home, everyone pitched in and built the Rocky Mountains. Teeny gathered up and sorted out all the rivers, letting some flow east and others west. After that, the children had no trouble following the eastern rivers down to the Atlantic Ocean. And when they wanted to go out exploring, Ma Bunyan would call out, "Now don't cross the Continental Divide, children." So this is how the Continental Divide came to be. The best thing about camping is sleeping outdoors. And the worst thing is not having enough hot water. That's why the Bunyans always camped in Wyoming. By the time their camping years were over, Ma Bunyan had poked more than 300 holes in the ground with her pickaxe and released tons of hot water from geysers. But Ma got tired of poking so many holes, so she made a geyser that blew every hour on the hour. After that, there was a steady supply of hot water to keep the giant's clothes and dishes sparkling clean. Teeny named the geyser Old Faithful, and to this day, Old Faithful still blows its top every hour in Yellowstone National Park. And there's a picture of Old Faithful. As our great country grew up, so did the Bunyan children. When the kids left home, Ma and Pa Bunyan retired to the wilderness area where they still live happily. He's playing bocce ball with his pickaxe, or with his axe, and she's got the pickaxe there. And Teeny hitched a ride on a whale over to England and became a famous fashion designer. Her colorful skirts made from air balloons and her breezy blouses cut from ship sails were a sensation at the first World's Fair in London. Little Jean traveled to Venice, Italy, where he studied astronomy and art. Every day, the gondoliers would take their passengers down the Grand Canal to watch the giant artist chiseling his marble sculptures. After graduation, little Jean decided to explore new lands as her parents had done. So he took 2 great jumps and 1 flying leap and bounded up into outer space. In 1976, the year of our country's bicentennial, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration sent a spacecraft named Viking 1 on a mission to study Mars. The spacecraft took many photographs of the surface of the planet. One mysterious photo looked like a face carved out of a colossal rock. Some say the photograph is not a face, but an illusion caused by light and shadows on the rock. Others think the famous Martian face is just the spitting image of little Jean Bunyan. If that's so, who knows what he's up to on the other planets. There's a picture of Ma and Pa Bunyan. The end. Says, who was Paul Bunyan? Paul Bunyan was first popularized by stories published by W.B. Lafhead for the Red River Lumber Company in Minnesota in 1914, but his origins remain the subject of debate, whether he originated on the Pacific Coast, in New England, or in the Midwest. Paul embodies the hardiness and industry of an American pioneer in spirits. And it just shows, like, here's a little map. It says, here are some of the natural wonders pictured in this book. You can kind of see that map right there. I love this because it is a cool tale. It's a folk tale that kind of they use the story to kind of give a silly or a other way to explain how these different natural phenomena happen. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the book. I see I've got a lot more people on here today. This is awesome. Hopefully people are sharing this, making sure, like I said, you subscribe to this channel. I do this every day at 6:30. Still always starts out like the story from Isbeth. Yes. It's like usually Stella starts out here. She heads out the other way. And then she ends up singing in the hallway and doing weird things. I don't know. Anywho, first of all, to all my students that are on here, I really, really, really miss you. I really do. I prefer to be back in the classroom. Well, not at this time of night. At this time of night, I prefer to be at home. Because if I'm still at the classroom at this time, it means I'm really behind on something. But other than that, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. I am thinking tomorrow I might do one of those live chats where just kind of come on and just everybody chats with me. I'll put a message on social media websites and through the Class Tag, Class Dojo, all that jazz to let you know if and when, what time, and where to be. But other than that, you all have a wonderful evening. I have got some things I'm going to do now, including a 2,000-piece puzzle because we're going to be here for a while. So anyway, you all have a wonderful evening and have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.